A warm welcome to you all. I am Diana, your guide on this journey into understanding the psychology behind femicide. This exploration is not for the faint-hearted. We're delving into the motivations of those who commit these heinous acts, the societal and cultural factors that contribute to them, and the ways we can all work towards prevention. We will navigate this topic with utmost sensitivity and precision, shedding light on a subject often shrouded in darkness. Join me as we delve deeper into this complex and dark corner of the human psyche. First, we explore the motivations and psychological traits common among those who commit femicide. In the shadowy corners of the human psyche, there exist a range of disturbing tendencies that can push an individual toward acts of extreme violence. Among these, possessiveness, pathological jealousy, and an insatiable need for control often prevail in those who commit femicide. Possessiveness is not merely an intensified form of affection. It is a toxic trait that can make a person view their partner as a possession, an object owned rather than a human being to be cherished. This can lead to an unhealthy obsession, a relentless desire to dominate every aspect of their partner's life. Pathological jealousy, on the other hand, is an irrational fear, a persistent suspicion that can gnaw at a person's sanity. It's a monstrous green-eyed beast that can twist love into a weapon of control and destruction. When left unchecked, it can escalate into paranoia, causing the person to perceive threats where none exist, and their actions can become increasingly violent as a result. Lastly, the need for control. This is not just about having the upper hand in a relationship, it's about total dominance. It's a desperate attempt to maintain order, to manipulate, to dictate. It is a trait often found in individuals who feel powerless or inadequate, and they compensate by exerting control over others, most commonly their partners. These traits, when combined, form a volatile mix that can lead to femicide. It's a lethal cocktail of extreme possessiveness, pathological jealousy, and a relentless need for control. It's a dark triad that can push an individual to the edge, leading them to commit unthinkable acts of violence. But remember, these are not excuses, nor are they justifications. They are simply psychological insights into the mind of an aggressor. Understanding these traits is a step towards prevention, towards spotting early warning signs and taking action before it's too late. These are just some of the disturbing traits that can drive a person to commit such a heinous act. Now, let's analyze the role power and control dynamics play in abusive relationships that can culminate in femicide. Power and control are two key elements that underpin abusive relationships. The abuser uses these tools to manipulate and dominate their partner, creating a fear-based environment where the victim may feel trapped and helpless. Let's begin by understanding what we mean by power and control. Power in this context refers to the ability or capacity to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Control, on the other hand, is the act of restricting someone's freedom, dictating their actions, and monitoring their behavior. In an abusive relationship, the abuser often wields power and control through a variety of tactics. These may include emotional manipulation, such as gaslighting, where the abuser makes the victim question their reality and sanity. It may also involve economic control, where the abuser restricts the victim's access to financial resources, thereby limiting their independence. Another common tactic is isolation, where the abuser cuts off the victim from their support network of friends and family. This leaves the victim feeling alone and dependent, making it harder for them to leave the relationship. Physical and sexual violence are also forms of control, used to instill fear and ensure compliance. These acts of violence can escalate over time, and in the most extreme cases may culminate in femicide. These power and control dynamics are not always clear-cut or obvious. They can be subtle and insidious, gradually eroding the victim's autonomy and self-esteem over time. This makes it difficult for victims to recognize that they are in an abusive relationship, and even harder for them to escape it. It's crucial to remember that these dynamics are not the victim's fault. The abuser chooses to use power and control as tools of manipulation. It is their actions, not the victims, that are to blame. Understanding these dynamics is a crucial step in prevention. We must educate ourselves and others about these signs of abuse and provide support and resources for those who may be trapped in these damaging power and control dynamics. Only then can we begin to break the cycle of violence and work towards a world free from femicide. Society and culture play a significant role in how violence against women is perceived and addressed. At the heart of the matter, we find cultural norms and societal attitudes that may tacitly allow or even downplay violence against women. It's a global issue, transcending geographical boundaries, ethnic groups, and socio-economic statuses. It's deeply rooted, often subtly woven into the fabric of our societies. Consider the cultural aspects. In certain societies, traditional gender roles and expectations can perpetuate harmful stereotypes. These stereotypes can lead to a normalization of violence, creating an environment where abusive behavior is overlooked, or worse, accepted as the norm. This acceptance breeds a dangerous complacency, an insidious silence that allows violence to persist, unchallenged and unaddressed. As we move from cultural to social aspects, we encounter the influence of peer groups, media, and social institutions. They shape our perceptions of what's acceptable and what's not. When these entities fail to condemn violence against women, they indirectly endorse the behaviors that lead to femicide. And then there's the legal perspective. Laws reflect society's values, and when these laws are weak, inconsistent, or poorly enforced, they send a message. They tell us that violence against women is not a priority. They tell us that the rights of women to live free from fear and harm are negotiable. And that's simply unacceptable. It's a complex web of factors, all contributing to the phenomenon of femicide. We need to challenge these norms, these attitudes, these laws that allow violence to thrive. We must promote a culture that respects and values all individuals equally, that doesn't turn a blind eye to abuse, and that holds perpetrators accountable. It's not an easy task, but it's a necessary one. We need to start conversations, to educate ourselves and others, to demand better laws and stricter enforcement. We need to stand up, speak out, and say no more to the silent acceptance of violence. We must challenge these societal norms that contribute to femicide. So, what are the warning signs of a potentially dangerous relationship, and how can we intervene? In understanding the complex dynamics of abusive relationships, we can identify certain red flags that may indicate potential danger. These signs aren't always obvious, but they are crucial to recognize. One key warning sign is a pattern of controlling behavior. This can manifest in many ways, such as obsessive monitoring of a partner's activities, isolating them from friends and family, or manipulating them emotionally. Another alarming signal is a tendency towards pathological jealousy. An abusive partner may exhibit possessive behaviors, constantly accusing the other of infidelity without any basis, or displaying excessive insecurity. Furthermore, the presence of verbal or physical abuse is a clear and loud warning bell. Any form of violence, whether it's an occasional push or consistent belittlement, is unacceptable and can potentially escalate to more dangerous levels. Understanding these signs is just the first step. The next crucial stage is prevention and intervention. Prevention begins with education. By teaching respect, empathy, and healthy relationship dynamics from an early age, we can equip individuals with the tools to avoid or escape unhealthy relationships. Intervention, on the other hand, involves active steps to protect those already in potentially dangerous situations. This could include encouraging victims to reach out to support networks or reporting suspected abuse to relevant authorities. It's also important to empower potential victims with knowledge of their rights and available resources. This could be community support groups, legal aid, or safe shelters. Remember, it's not just the responsibility of the victim to recognize and escape an abusive relationship. As a society, we all play a part in identifying warning signs, intervening where possible, and providing support to those in need. In the face of these daunting issues, let's not forget the power of human kindness and connection. Small acts of support can have a big impact, and a listening ear can sometimes mean the difference between despair and hope. Awareness and early intervention can save lives. Justice for victims and their families is often a hard-won battle. This statement rings true, especially when we delve into femicide cases from a legal and judicial perspective. Femicide, the deliberate killing of women and girls due to their gender, is an egregious violation of human rights. Yet it's a crime that too often goes unnoticed, unreported, or unpunished. The road to justice for femicide victims is indeed a rocky one, marked by various obstacles. These hurdles are not just physical but also psychological, social, and legal. In the labyrinth of law, justice can sometimes be elusive. Legal systems worldwide grapple with the challenge of appropriately responding to femicide. In many jurisdictions, punishment for this crime is woefully inadequate and in some cases non-existent. There's a pressing need to establish and enforce laws that specifically address femicide, categorizing it as a distinct crime separate from homicide. Moreover, the judicial process is often a daunting ordeal for the victims' families. The lack of sensitivity and understanding from law enforcement and judicial authorities can compound the pain and trauma they already endure. The need for a victim-centered approach in dealing with femicide cases cannot be emphasized enough. Yet, even amidst these hurdles, there are glimmers of hope. We see this in the tireless efforts of lawyers, activists, and families who refuse to let victims' stories be forgotten. We see this in landmark court rulings that acknowledge femicide as a unique crime, setting a precedent for future cases. We also see progress in legislative reforms. Countries like Mexico and Guatemala have enacted laws that specifically address femicide, recognizing it as a unique crime deserving of severe penalties. These are significant steps towards ensuring justice for the victims and their families. However, the path to justice is far from straightforward. It requires relentless pursuit, unwavering commitment, and a collective societal effort to challenge and change the status quo. It necessitates a shift from apathy to empathy, from silence to action, and from ignorance to awareness. Make no mistake, the path to justice is fraught with challenges, but it's a fight worth fighting, because every life lost to femicide is a stark reminder of the work that still needs to be done. Every victory in court is a beacon of hope, illuminating the path towards a world where no woman has to live in fear of violence. Victims of domestic violence and femicide are not alone. There are resources available. In the face of such adversity, it's important to remember that there are many organizations out there dedicated to providing support and assistance. Let's shed some light on the various support services that exist. First off, counseling services play a pivotal role. These services provide emotional support, therapeutic interventions, and help victims process their experiences. This can be a vital step towards healing and recovery. Next, legal aid services are crucial in helping victims navigate the complex legal landscape. They provide legal advice, assist with restraining orders, and support victims throughout court proceedings. It's all about empowering victims and ensuring their rights are protected. Then there are shelters, safe havens for those in need. Shelters provide immediate safety for victims and their children, offering a place to stay and basic necessities like food and clothing. More than just a roof over one's head, shelters provide a nurturing environment to help victims regain their independence. Now let's talk about helplines. These are often the first point of contact for victims seeking help. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, these lines offer confidential advice, emotional support, and can guide victims to appropriate services. Remember, reaching out for help is a brave step towards change. In addition, there are numerous online resources available. Websites and apps can offer advice, information, and connections to local services. They also provide platforms for victims to share their stories, fostering a sense of community and solidarity. It's also worth noting that many support services extend to friends and family of victims. They offer guidance on how to support a loved one who may be experiencing domestic violence, helping to create a strong support network. In tackling such deep and complex issues, it is essential to remember that no one should face them alone. Help is out there, and it's important that victims know where to find it. Each and every person has the right to live free from violence and fear, and while the journey may be challenging, with the right support and resources, hope and healing are possible. The narrative around femicide and violence against women needs to change. For too long, society has been entrenched in a discourse that subtly or sometimes blatantly assigns blame to victims rather than holding the aggressors accountable. This victim-blaming perspective perpetuates the cycle of violence and allows the true culprits to evade responsibility. To alter this narrative, we must first acknowledge the problem. Recognize that this is not a women's issue alone, but a societal one. Violence against women is not a result of the victim's actions, clothing, or choices. It's a manifestation of the aggressor's distorted sense of entitlement and control. We need to shift the conversation from what she did wrong to why he chose to act with violence. This perspective places responsibility squarely on the shoulders of the one who commits the act. It is a crucial step in eradicating the culture of victim blaming and in fostering a society that condemns violence in all its forms. Moreover, we need to foster environments that promote open and honest discussions about these issues. Schools, workplaces, and homes should be safe spaces where individuals can share their experiences without fear of judgment or reprisal. An essential part of changing this narrative is also through the media. The media plays a significant role in shaping public opinion. Therefore, it's crucial that they present stories of femicide and violence against women responsibly, highlighting the criminality of the aggressor rather than scrutinizing the victim's behavior. Lastly, we must prioritize education, not just formal education but also informal conversations that challenge harmful stereotypes and biases. It's about teaching respect, consent, and equality from a young age. It's about showing that violence is not a sign of strength and control is not a proof of love. Remember, this is not an overnight process. It's a gradual shift that requires concerted effort from all corners of society. But it's a shift that's not just possible, it's necessary. Changing the narrative starts with us. Each of us has a role to play, a voice to raise, and a responsibility to challenge the status quo. Let's stand together in this fight against femicide and violence against women. Let's change the narrative, and in doing so, change the world. Our journey today has taken us through some dark and complex terrains. We've delved into the chilling psychology of the aggressor, finding common tendencies towards possessiveness, pathological jealousy, and an insidious need for control. We've examined the power and control dynamics that form the sinister undercurrent of abusive relationships, often culminating in the tragedy of femicide. We've looked at how society, culture, and even the law can sometimes unwittingly permit or downplay violence against women, thereby contributing to this harrowing phenomenon. We've highlighted the warning signs of a relationship teetering on the brink of danger and discussed prevention and intervention strategies to protect potential victims. We've journeyed through the path to justice, scrutinizing femicide cases from a legal and judicial perspective, acknowledging both the triumphs and tribulations in bringing justice to victims and their families. We've shared resources for victims of domestic violence and femicide, from support services and shelters to helplines. We've also talked about the importance of changing the narrative, of shifting public discourse to hold aggressors accountable rather than blaming victims. We've underscored the crucial role of education in preventing violence against women and promoting healthy, respectful relationships. Finally, we've heard from experts and survivors and acknowledged the deep impacts of femicide on families, communities, and society at large. Thank you for joining me, Diana, on this journey. Let's continue the conversation and work together to end violence against women.